Hello, and welcome back to Political Science 4781, Techniques of Political Analysis. In this series of videos, we're talking about time. In the last video, we talked about dates in R, that is, how we can translate dates from a human-readable format into a format that R understands. And in the next few videos, we're going to be talking about presidential popularity and the popularity of primary candidates in the Republican primary for the 2012 presidential election as different ways, illustrations of how it is that you can create time series graphs. We'll be using ordinary line graphs, we will be learning how to do polygons, and we'll use stream graphs, which are a particularly interesting and informative way of looking at relationships over time. So let's start off with presidential approval ratings and going out and finding data to use on presidential approval. All right, so one of the first things we're going to need to do if we're going to come up with a graph of presidential approval over time is to look for data on presidential approval ratings. And when we do that, we come up with a bunch of possibilities. UC Santa Barbara has some presidential popularity data, Gallup, the Roper Center, Real Clear Politics, which aggregates different data sets from all over, and so on. Now, this should prompt you to ask yourself a question, right? Namely, how reliable are these data? We have a bunch of different polling organizations, but in recent years, some of them, on the one hand, tend to lean one way or another politically, although I think that tends to be more of a perception than the reality. The reality is polling is getting to be a harder and harder business to do. It relies very heavily on getting a random subset of the American population. And now that people have, cell phones and can move all over the place, you might think you're calling someone in California when, in fact, you're calling someone in Boston. And that can mess up your sampling. And as an additional factor, people on cell phones, if a solicitor calls you on a cell phone, you can tell them to go pound sand, and they're supposed to respect that. So there are a variety of reasons for which polling is becoming a more difficult thing to do. So some of these polling firms, a lot of times when they, almost always when they do a poll, there are a lot of weights that they use in order to sort of average out to the right answer, right, or nominally the right answer. But those weights are getting more complicated and baroque and becoming less of a science and more of an art, some would say. So one thing you want to find out is, you've got this choice from among a wide range of different numbers. What are the best ones to use? Well, we can try to answer that question by looking at presidential poll house effects. House effects are the extent to which a polling firm is off in one direction or another when calculating popularity. So Nate Silver wrote this neat piece for the 538 blog, where he calculates the house effects of different polling firms. Okay? And to make a long story short, if you take a look, you can see some that are highly respected, Pew Research and Gallup, actually skew pretty hard one way or the other. That is, the house effect probably entirely due to problems in sampling and converting samples into populations, did not do all that well in the last presidential election. They were off by a substantial margin. On the other hand, there are a couple in the middle, YouGov, CNN, Rasmussen reports, that look like they did pretty well. So now you got to remember, as analysts, our purpose is not to make the Republicans look good or make the Democrats look good. It's to find the truth. Right? So based on this, it looks like our best option for getting good numbers, as unbiased as possible, is to go with CNN. So let's check out CNN presidential popularity data. And we find, first, oddly enough, we find Real Clear Politics, which is the data aggregator, or the poll aggregator that I mentioned before. Then we get down to the polling center for CNN. And let's go on to CNN's election center and see what we can find. Well, we can find CNN's poll of polls, which shows us how Obama's handling his job as president. This is also sort of an aggregation of CNN polls. So, but this is just a snapshot. All it shows us is Thursday, May 30th, 2013. And when you click on the link for the poll, it doesn't update as quickly as you'd like. So we click on it to see what we can find. And what we find is more polls of polls. Here's March 12th, here's March 12th, and here's some comments. So what you don't see in here is a link. We can click on CNN's poll of polls, and we get back to where we just were, right? So you don't really see a link to data that you can use. Maybe over here, CNN's poll. No, and that just take us back where we were. Mood of the nation, perhaps. Data view. Well, we get all these things sliced up into little pieces we don't actually get. And down at the bottom, would you like to load more polls? No, I just want all of them in one place. Thank you. So, to make a long story short, CNN's data center bites. It really doesn't give you the data that you want if you're an analyst and you just want to call up some data on presidential popularity and make a graph. So, how can we do this? Well, as I said before, Real Clear Politics aggregates presidential popularity polls from a lot of different sources. We've got Rasmussen reports, we've got Gallup, we've got Reuters, so on and so forth. So if we scroll down and keep scrolling down, because it's been a little while since we've had a CNN poll, I guess, June. Here we find the CNN Opinion Research poll. So we should be able to click on this link and get ourselves either the data from this poll or the data from a wide range of polls. So we click on it, and we get a PDF. You might ask yourself why it is that a modern polling firm would put polling numbers like this. And let's take a look here, right here on page 2. We go back all the way to 2008, right? So here are CNN's numbers. Here are the unbiased numbers that we're looking for, and they're in a PDF. Why would you do that? I mean, suggestion to CNN, next time, why don't you just carve them into stone instead? Because that would be only marginally more difficult for analysts to deal with. So, all right, rant over. Now, let's try our simple technique of highlighting all of the data and hoping that we're going to get really, really lucky. We go up here to Edit, Copy. We start up Microsoft Excel. Those of you who've done a little bit of this are probably already laughing, but let's see. Let's see what this will do for us. Try pasting directly into Excel. Oh, no. That really isn't going to work at all. I do not want to sit here and try to figure out how these numbers relate to these words and to each other and the dates, and too much of a pain. We can try doing paste special. Paste as HTML, Unicode text, we'll try it as text. Same problem. Okay, so that's not going to work for us. How about our friend Outwit Hub? Maybe we can get really lucky, and Outwit will be able to dig down into this website and pull the numbers out of the PDF. So let's check it out. Go to Outwit Hub, plug in the file URL, and it says no, this is a PDF. We can't open it inside Outwit Hub. So we have to get creative here. Right? We've used all of our favorite tricks. What are we going to do? Well, let's try looking on the internet to convert PDF to Excel. Let's see if we can find something that does that. PDF to Excel converter 100% free. That sounds promising. PDF to Excel online. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is select a PDF file to convert. Okay, so we will save this and open it. Now, the trick is, here we are in preview. The trick is we don't want this page. We don't want the opening page, right? So we're going to look at the thumbnails and click on the first page and hit backspace, and that deletes it. And then we're going to click on page 2, all the way down to page 33. I mean, there are a lot of other questions on here we might want, but we don't, right? Really, all we want is, do you approve or disapprove of the way Barack Obama is handling his job as president? We've got approve, we've got disapprove, we've got no opinion. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so now we're going to export this as PDF into the desktop and save it there. All right, and when we close this off, and we go back to the PDF to Excel converter. All right, so we're going to choose the file, and it's going to be rel7a.pdf. Right? We're going to choose that. Email the Excel file. Let's email it to me. Still can't type. Okay. Do I want to get news, tips, and special offers from Nitro? I do not. So they're going to process this document. All right, conversion is complete. I have 4 free conversions left. To get more, I need to sign up for an account. I don't need an account just yet. We'll see how useful this thing is. Now, I'm going to go over to my mail account, which I have cleverly hidden on a different screen because I don't need to be broadcasting the contents of my inbox to everybody on the internet. And I have email from Nitro saying, come and get your... there we go. And as you saw, it sort of spit that little file out. What we do is go to Downloads, open up the file, and we actually have something pretty useful. Very close to what we're looking for. All we need to do is click here, click down here, or shift-click down here, and then copy this. And then we're going to go down here and paste. Right, and now we have the full series right here. So, a couple of sort of cleanup things to do. First of all, we need to delete, where was it? Delete these columns. Just get rid of them. We don't need them anymore. The percentages are going to mess up R or just about any other data analysis package. It doesn't really like percents, so let's get rid of. Let's do find. Actually, replace. So we're going to find the percentage sign and replace it with nothing. Replace all. Okay, and that 209 instances is a whole lot faster than doing it by hand. We have a blank line here that we're going to go up and delete. Okay. Approve is kind of goofy formatting, right? It's half underlined and half not, and there's a line through the middle. Disapprove is the same, so we're going to delete this, and we're going to get rid of the underline. Whoops, get rid of the underline. And no opinion is partly underlined, which we'll get rid of. Okay? And then looking down here, we've mostly got, okay, so here's a little asterisk. And the asterisk told us in the original file, if memory serves, say here, take a look at it. What did the asterisk tell us? It says, asked of half sample. So I'm not entirely sure why that asterisk is up here in this spot. If we really were extremely worried about, about that number, if it was, a number that mattered a whole lot, we could do a little bit more digging, maybe email somebody and find out. The fact is we've got 49 to 50, so the number can only be 0 or 1. Whoops, I don't know why I did that. The number can only be 0 or 1. Let's pick 0 just for fun. Or actually, since this was 1 right here, for lack of a better guess, we'll make this 1, and we'll mess with it. Can we change the alignment a little bit? It's going to. Oh, there's probably a way to do this that I've forgotten about. Well, it's aligned center, and I'd like it to be aligned left. Here we go. Yeah, simplest option of all. All right. So we've got everything lined up. So we have these dates down here. And this one has RV written as, down at the bottom, so we're going to get rid of that. And so here we go. We've got our dates for all the polls. We have our approval rating. Oops. We have our approval rating. We have our disapproval rating, and we have the number of people who have no opinion. So we can save this as. First of all, we're going to format it as comma-separated values, and we're going to call it presapproval.csv, and we'll save it, since we're working on it, subsequently we'll save it on the desktop. Okay. Now, Excel tells us, always warns you that this workbook contains features that may be removed if you save it in selected file format. It tries to de-emphasize continue, and then when you go to quit, it'll warn you again, do you want to save your changes? No, I don't want to save my changes. So I think Excel just doesn't like CSV. It likes you to save things in Excel format. So anyway, that is the upshot of how you take this mess of numbers here on CNN's PDF and turn them into probably the most accurate polling numbers you're going to get for presidential approval. And in the next video, we'll take a look at what we do with those numbers now that we have them.